Welcome back to Applying Yourself, a law school admissions podcast from Washington University School of Law in St. Louis. I'm Taylor Yoakum, an admissions specialist here at WashU Law. Today, we have a special guest episode with Aubrey King and Erica Jones from the WashU Black Law Students Association, or BLSA, as we call it, speaking with Vice Dean of Institutional Success, Katie Scannell, about the 2023 SCOTUS decision on affirmative action and how it impacts law school admissions.
Thank you all for having us. My name is Aubrey King, and I currently serve as the president for WashU Law's Black Law Students Association. I am here with our advocacy chair, Erica Jones, and today we are taking time to chat with Dean Katie Scannell to discuss the practical implications of the Supreme Court's affirmative action ruling. Erica will be leading this interview-style conversation with the hopes of demystifying admissions post-decision. Before we hop into our questions, I just want to give a bit of a background on who BLSA is and what we do. The Black American Law Student Association, later changed to the National Black Law Students Association, was founded in 1968. National BLSA was created to sensitize the law and legal profession to the ever-increasing needs of the Black community. Since its inception, National BLSA has remained responsive to the needs of the Black community in general and Black law students in particular. Today, National BLSA is the largest student-run organization in America and has over 200 chapters at law schools throughout the country. Our WashU Law chapter of BLSA was established here in 1973. WashU Law BLSA exists to support our members by focusing on the concerns and well-beings of Black students in their pursuit of success in law school. Our chapter continuously hosts community-building events and a variety of academic, professional, and social programs. We also engage in advocacy for our body and our broader community. The program being offered today serves as a tangible manifestation of our advocacy efforts. We are spearheading this discussion to ensure that incoming students benefit from increased transparency in their application process. Our goal is to serve as a voice, asking questions that aspiring students may not have the opportunity to. With that being said, I want to hand it over to Erica.
Thanks, Aubrey. Hi, everyone. My name is Erica, and I'm a current 3L JD MPH student at WashU Law. And as mentioned, I also serve as the advocacy chair for BLSA. Let's get right into the questions. With respect to the future of admissions, what is WashU Law doing differently?
Wow, that's a big question. But like at many schools, we've been trying to figure this out ever since the decision. And it's, there isn't one clear-cut answer. WashU always looked at experiences extensively. That was always part of our process. And so from that perspective, we're still doing that. Experiences, life experiences, and how those impact an individual are really important, especially after the case, and so we are continuing to do that. Some things we did have to look at our processes and make sure that we're complying, and so we spent some time doing that. Our admissions committee can no longer see race or ethnicity at the time that they're reviewing an applicant's information as a checkbox, I'll call it. So that box is no longer visible for the admissions committee. That's, I'd say, one of the big changes. We also changed our application a little bit. So we tried to look at the questions and think about ways that applicants could tell us about themselves, in different formats, and change some of the questions around a little bit. We make most of our questions are optional, but we do encourage students to tell us as much about themselves as they're comfortable, and we look at that very carefully.
That actually leads into another question that I had. It's been noted that other top law schools such as Yale, Harvard, Duke, or Michigan have revamped their law school applications to more broad language. And as you mentioned, you guys changed around some of those questions and made a lot of things optional. Could you kind of go into what are the required questions and the experiences? Are these questions asking students in particular about their experiences in terms of education, or is it just work?
It's very broad. So I should step back a little bit because I may have we had most of our questions as optional before. So we want applicants to tell us what they want to tell us about themselves, and we always had the approach of a pretty broad questions so that they could tell us as much or as little as they wanted. So the optional thing is not super new. We had specific questions and broad questions before, and I would say we transitioned those more specific questions into broader questions. And when we ask students to tell us about themselves, we ask for all types of life experiences. Any kind of background that they feel is important to what, how they've grown as an individual and the perspectives they'll bring to the classroom. So we have those broad questions, and then we actually have an opportunity for students to write anything they choose to tell us. They can submit as many addenda as they would like with their application. And so if we didn't kind of cover it with one of the umbrella questions, they have the opportunity to do that as well.
Thank you. As you know, WashU Law and a lot of other top law schools are predominantly white institutions. How do you think that the school will ensure that racial diversity and equity will not be affected despite this ruling?
Our priorities remain to have a very diverse class with very diverse perspectives and backgrounds. And so the decision very specifically says you can't use certain factors as a proxy for race, and so we are complying fully with the decision. But I think that our process will result ultimately in a very diverse class, and so that's our goal. I wish I had a crystal ball. We are all right in the middle of this with this year's incoming, the class that's being recruited right now. And so we are constantly looking for ways to ensure that we have those diverse perspectives and hope that also results in racial diversity. I don't want to keep talking too much, Erica, but we do believe we can recruit specific groups of students who we believe have had experiences that will add to the law school community. So we are actively reaching out to various groups. We always have, and we continue to do so, to encourage them to apply to WashU Law, tell us about their experiences, and hopefully that creates a really strong applicant pool that then results in a really strong, diverse class. So one thing that WashU, from the admission standpoint, has been committed to for a while, and we've kind of doubled down on this. We reach out to prospective law students across the board and try to provide them resources in the law school application process. Now, as you guys know, you're here, and WashU's a selective and hard school to get into. So not every student who we talk with is going to be admitted to WashU, but they all can, any prospective student can meet with one-on-one with our admissions ambassadors, get advice about their application. We have a lot of resources to help them submit the best possible application. And I think this, although we were doing it before the decision, this became especially important after the decision, so that someone who maybe doesn't have the connections in their life to help them write their personal statement in a way that fully describes who they are, we can help advise on that. And so we'll look at personal statements, we do workshops, and help them think about how to apply to all law schools, not just WashU.
That's really good to hear that you all have different resources for people to use in their application process, not for just WashU, but for other universities. That's really good to hear.
Absolutely. We try to reach different audiences. So we have a Discord server, and we have live programs, and we have the individual consultations, because a lot of students don't want to ask in a group some of the questions that they need to know the answer to. And so I think that the resource I get most excited about are the one-on-one consultations. And hopefully those are really helping students figure out how to draft their application in a way that they'll have the most options possible.
One last question about applications before we move forward. WashU, at least when I applied, was test optional already, and as you mentioned, there's a lot of optional questions on the application itself. Will the test optional option still be available, or is WashU considering removing standardized test requirements altogether?
That is such a great question. We aren't technically test optional, and I can talk about that. What we have is something called redacted review. So the American Bar Association requires that we have a test score, and for WashU, that's either the LSAT, the GRE, for every admitted student. What we did, and I am 99.9% sure we were the first ones to do this, and I don't know if anybody else is doing it yet. I want to say 5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, we decided that we would offer applicants the option to redact either their LSAT or GPA or both. And so students can, while they have to have the test score, the admissions committee doesn't have to see it when they're evaluating their application. And there are a few exceptions to that. You know, if you're coming from a WashU as an undergrad, you don't have to have a test score. But we think this is such an important option. So many students have things that maybe their test score or their undergraduate GPA would distract from the full picture. And so to have the committee review their application without that, I think is very important. Undergrad grades, it may have been a long time ago.
Yeah.
You may have had something happen personally.
Right.
Test scores, some people are great test takers and some people aren't. Some people have the resources and some people don't. So this has been a really important part of our admissions process.
Yeah, so it sounds like WashU is really trying to have a really well-rounded overview of people's applications and not just consider like academic factors, but just also consider personal factors.
Absolutely. The best legal education is if you have a lot of different perspectives in the classroom and outside in our community.
Yeah.
You know this, you just hosted the longest table,
right?
right?
Yeah, it was an amazing event. And it was really great to have those diverse perspectives all in one room. And we were actually hearing about how those perspectives affected people's legal journey. So it was really interesting.
I thought that was so great. And so now I just have to say that a lot of what we do also is rely on our students and our student organizations to help us create the best community and a lot of times help us recruit the best students. Our alums and our current students are constantly recommending prospective students, and we value those recommendations a lot as yet another kind of perspective on the applicant. And so that's I think so important to the process also.
Yeah, going off on community, I know WashU has already implemented changes from the affirmative action ruling, including changing the name and the advertising of what used to be called the Diversity Showcase or the Diversity Expo. I think it's called First Chance.
Yes.
What other changes can students expect to see?
So our goal in the Career Center is to make sure that all employers that we keep all the doors open for you. And so we want to create programs that employers will be confident or compliant in hiring. And I realize the SCOTUS decision was not about hiring, but there's a lot of talk about how that, how that may impact the future in recruiting. So we thought, let's make a program where we can still highlight all the different students in our community and help employers connect with the students they're most interested in meeting with, but definitely ensure that employers felt, WashU was complying and that it wouldn't be violating any recruiting options for them. So we call it First Chance. It did used to be called the Diversity Expo, and we call it First Chance. And there's an opportunity for the employers to meet with different student organizations or to tell us they really want to meet specific kinds of students, and that can be students from geographic locations, or some employers, their diversity programs, they said, we're just still calling it a diversity program and we want to meet these students. And so we introduce them to the students that they want to meet. And we are always looking to improve, but that was our first effort at ensuring that we wouldn't be cutting out any employers just because they weren't comfortable with the structure of the program.
I had a question. So I know WashU Law does interviews for applicants. Like, how can you all say that race is being left out when you are seeing the applicants prior to admission?
So a couple things on that kind of, or triggers a couple thoughts. So when we do the interviewer does not, we have notes, so great personality, all these things. We have structured our notes a little bit. This goes back to your first question. Our notes are a little bit more structured than they've been in the past, and our notes do not include race and ethnicity.
Okay.
So the person doing the interview is probably not part of the admissions committee, and we do so many that you won't just remember that.
Yeah.
We do have a section in our notes that provides the applicant an opportunity to talk about their experiences, skills they've developed from their experiences, things like that. And so we note that pretty carefully. We also note, leadership positions they have in various organizations.
Yeah.
And we encourage them to talk about that as well. So we try to be as comprehensive as possible in the notes and learn as much about the applicant in that 20 to 30 minute time frame but we don't put race and ethnicity in the notes. I can say thank you guys for having me. It's great for you guys to ask these questions. I hope I answered them. And we kind of talked about this, but our students come up with the best ideas for us. So as we all navigate the future in this new world of admissions and potentially in other spaces, our students have fantastic ideas, and so we rely on all those great students, smart students that we recruit, to help us think about ways to connect with individuals who are going to make our community better.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. We appreciate you for sitting down and talking with BLSA. And we hope that this conversation informs some of the incoming students or the applicants. And just thank you again.